There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. And as we're all preparing for Shabbat, whatever country seems to be a lot of people away and different places, but we're all together for Kabbalat Shabbat now. And so welcome. And we're going to start with Morris, who will give us a Devar Torah. Morris.
Thank you very much. Pardon me. Where were we? Right. It was Jenny's yahrzeit earlier this week. I'd like to dedicate this Devar Torah to her. We hear it, we chant it, and sometimes even sing it every week. And this week, we'll hear it from Stuart Lee. I am, of course, talking about the Chol Dodi. The Chol Dodi welcomes the Shabbat prior to the evening service. It's part of Kabbalat Shabbat. The refrain of the Chol Dodi means, "Let us go, my beloved, to meet the bride. The Shabbat's presence, let us welcome." And it's a request for Israel's beloved, Hashem, to join together in welcoming a bride, the Sabbath. The phrase, "Let us go, my beloved," is taken from the Song of Songs, which Abba ben Joseph ben Hammer interpreted as Israel talking to Hashem. During the singing of the last verse, the entire congregation rises and turns to the opposite direction to Jerusalem, or towards the door. Some have the custom to exit the synagogue. The congregation bows at "Come, O my bride," and turns back to the front of the synagogue. Some bow only forwards, and others to the sides and then forwards. Many Reform congregations omit verses 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8, which refer to the Messianic redemption, while Sephardic congregations based in Jerusalem and Aleppo omit verses 4 and verses 6 through 8, as they refer to agony. So much for the ritual, but what about the poem itself? The Chol Dodi was composed in the 16th century by Shlomo Halevi al-Kabaz, who was born in Thessaloniki and later became a Safard Kabbalist. As was common practice at the time, the poem is also an acrostic, with the first letter of the first 8 stanzas spelling the author's name. The author has drawn on rabbinic interpretations of the Song of Songs that originated in the 3rd century BCE, in which the bride is seen as a metaphor for the Jewish population residing within Israel's biblical borders, and the lover, Dod, is a metaphor for Hashem. Recitation of the poem, the Chol Dodi, is Israel asking Hashem to bring forward that great Shabbat of messianic deliverance, and is one of the latest poems to be included in the traditional liturgy. The Chol Dodi is a poem, but it's also a song. In the early 20th century, Abraham Zvi Indelshon recorded hundreds of different tunes used for the Chol Dodi. Among some Sephardic congregations, the hymn is sometimes chanted for an ancient Moorish melody, which is known to be much older than the text of the Chol Dodi. This is clear from the rubric in Old Sidurim directing the hymn to be sung to the melody of Shavui Nafshi Il Machayetki, a composition of Yehuda Halevi, who died nearly 5 centuries before Shlomo Halevi al-Kabaz. In this rendering, carried to Israel by Spanish refugees before the days of al-Kabaz, the Chol Dodi is chanted congregationally, a refrain being employed as an introduction only. In some Ashkenazi synagogues, the verses are ordinarily chanted at elaborate length by the chazan, and the refrain is used by the congregational response. But in most Ashkenazi synagogues, it's sung by everyone, together with any large number of tunes. At certain periods of the year, many congregations discard their usual compositions in favour of 2 simpler, older melodies, singly reminiscent of the folk songs of Northern Europe, composed in the century succeeding that which the verses were written. The better known of these tunes, reserved for the Omer weeks and between Passover and Shavuos, which has been variously described because of certain of its phrases as an adaptation of the famous anti-Irish Catholic political song dated 1688 and used by the BBC World Service, Lili Bolero, and the cavatina to the beginning of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. During the 3 weeks preceding Tisha B'Av, the Chol Dodi is often sung to the tune of Eli Zion, which is also a traditional melody for the Kinnot on Tisha B'Av. There is, however, a special melody traditional for the 3 weeks preceding Tisha B'Av, characterized by its much tender charm, and was once very generally sung in Northern Europe, and the variant was chosen by Benedetto Marcello for his rendition of Psalm 19, where it is quoted as an air of German Jews. Cantor Edward Birnbaum discovered the source of this melody in a Polish folk song, and I'm not going to give you the name because it's got too many consonants here, given by Oskar Kohlberg, Piosenki Ludu Poskora in Warsaw. An older melody of similar obvious folk songs originally was favoured by the London jury a century ago and was sung in 2 slightly divergent forms in the old city synagogues. Both of these forms are given by Isaac Nathan in his setting of Byron's Hebrew Melodies, where they constitute the air selected for She Walks in Beauty. First of the verses in the series. The melody has since fallen out of use in English congregations and elsewhere. However, we are privileged insofar that all of the Shliach Tziburim that we have on the Zoom session bring their own versions of the melody to the Chol Dodi, and we shall enjoy listening to Stuart's version this evening. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shakayach.
Thank you very much, Morris, for that interesting explanation of